Hey everyone, welcome. We'll get started in a second. I'm Julissa Gilmore. Feel free to throw your name and pronouns in the chat and where you're located while we're waiting to get started. Hey everyone, welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat while we're waiting to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, your name, where you're joining us from, and we'll get started in just a minute. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our workforce development and brownfield revitalization, the Emerald Trail Stewards Program webinar. I'm Julissa Gilmore. I'm the Senior Manager of Health and Land Use at Groundwork USA, and I'll be your host and moderator for today. And so for today, we'll do a quick welcome. I'll share a little bit about Groundwork USA and our Brownfield Technical Assistance Program. And then we'll hear from our guest speakers from Groundwork Jacksonville, Kay and Janet. And then we'll do a Q&A. And then we'll, share some information for how to connect with us and some more upcoming opportunities. And so Groundwork USA is a national nonprofit that supports and strengthens grassroots efforts to build healthier, more resilient neighborhoods. We do this by working deeply and closely with our network of place-based affiliates like Groundwork Jacksonville, and by facilitating national peer-to-peer learning, technical assistance, and grant-making programs for community-centered organizations nationwide. And this is just a map of where you can find our Groundwork affiliates throughout the country. And so this webinar today is brought to you by our national nonprofit Brownfield Technical Assistance Program. It's a nationwide capacity building program specifically tailored to nonprofits to help increase their capacity working in communities with brownfields to be able to transform these spaces so that all the community can benefit from a safe and healthy environment, transforming brownfields into assets such as parks, urban farms, affordable housing, and even commercial spaces, with the ultimate goal of improving public health in their communities. And the funding for this program is funded by the EPA's Office of Brownfield and Land Revitalization. And so with our technical assistance program, we do 3 main buckets of work. We do direct technical assistance, including a 6-month learning cohort with nonprofits or one-on-one technical assistance with folks who need support. We also do webinars and workshops like the one that we're doing today. And then we have a library of visual resources or resources to help you with your brownfield projects, guides, graphics, and all the webinar recordings. And so if you're here through the Urban Waters Learning Network, this is also a collaboration with the Urban Waters Learning Network with our learning series From Silos to Synergy, integrating land and water programs for holistic environmental action. And this is connecting land, air, and water systems and just showing that they're all connected and how we can work together. And this is one of the Brownfield webinars. So check out the Urban Waters Learning Network. It's a peer-to-peer network of people and organizations working to conserve, restore, and revitalize America's urban waterways, supporting our members' work through tools, training, mentoring, and financial assistance. And so today's webinar, mentioned as a Brownfields webinar, it's part of a series where we hear from nonprofits who have done brownfield work in their communities and really share the benefits of how transforming brownfields can improve local environments, public health, and economic conditions. We'll hear from Groundwork Jacksonville about how they hired and trained residents to build and maintain a 30-mile greenway. And then you'll also just gain practical tips and inspiration to begin your workforce development efforts in your own community. And so we're lucky enough to have 2 speakers join us today from Groundwork Jacksonville. We have Kate Ehas, the CEO of Groundwork Jacksonville, and Janet Ragar, the Chief Operating Officer. And so Kay Ehas is the CEO of Groundwork Jacksonville, the City of Jacksonville's nonprofit partner in creating the 30-mile Emerald Trail and restoring McCoy's Creek and Hogan's Creek. Since joining Groundwork in 2017, Kay has been relentless in her pursuit of achieving Jacksonville's dream of connected trails, parks, and creeks that encircle the urban core. Kay quickly went to work developing the Emerald Trail Master Plan, which was adopted by the Jacksonville City Council in early 2019. Now, just 5 years later, a significant portion of the trail is complete, under construction, or in design. The La Villa Link, the first segment of the Emerald Trail, opened in May of 2024. And Janet Ragar is the Chief Operating Officer. Janet joined Groundwork Jacksonville in 2023 and directs day-to-day operations, including human resources, facilities, and operational policies and procedures that support the growth of Groundwork Jacksonville. And Janet is also responsible for the effective development and execution of programs like the Emerald Trail Stewards that reflected Groundwork's mission, values, and commitment to the community. So I'm really happy to be joined by them both today. And so with that, I will turn it over to Kay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to talk about kind of the bigger picture and some of our projects before Janet talks specifically about the Emerald Trail Stewards. So go ahead and click the next. So we share a mission with all of the Groundwork Trusts. How we talk about it, though, is really promoting environmental, economic, and social well-being by creating green spaces that people can flourish in. Next. So we became a Groundwork Trust in October of 2014. It was sought after by Mayor Alvin Brown's mayoral administration and working with 2 neighborhoods, Springfield and Eastside, that are connected by Hogan's Creek. So we really see our most important partner as Jacksonville's urban neighborhoods that the trail is connecting. And then the city of Jacksonville is a key partner because most of what we're doing is on city land, and it will actually be, the Emerald Trail will actually be a city park. And then we have local option gas tax dollars that were under the Jacksonville Transportation Authority, and that's when they became a partner in 2021. And then every project has stakeholders, right? Whether they're people that own property, if it's vacant property, we might need for the creek, or UF Health, which is a major hospital that we're going to be daylighting Hogan's Creek through their property. So we actually need to get their permission and cooperation to be able to do that. Next. So our specific projects are creating this 30-mile Emerald Trail, which is open space, adding green space. And whenever you add green infrastructure, as you know, you're improving the environment everywhere you go. So trees are really important to what we're doing. And then our stewardship and workforce training, not just about the Emerald Trail stewards, but we have programs such as CREST, which pays folks to do water sampling on the creeks. We do pre-restoration and post-restoration water sampling. They'll do projects like identifying vacant and abandoned structures to help with home repair and ensuring folks don't get displaced. So we really believe in paying folks, residents, for helping us with projects. And then the urban core, or where the trail is going, it's almost all an EPA designated brownfield. So we are in the brownfields. Next. So the trail that you see in this photo is in green, and you can see that the redlining maps that it's really is in the hazardous and definitely declining areas. And when they did that back in the 1930s and beyond. So we are definitely in the thick of it in terms of our geography. And many folks believe that redlining is still happening today. So we are working with these neighborhoods to, with them leading, we see them as the architects of their neighborhood revitalization. So that's how we're approaching it. Next. So as I just said, you know, most of where we are is a designated EPA brownfield, whether it's creek pollution or land pollution. I mean, it's kind of everywhere. The city is under a consent decree with the EPA because they had garbage incinerator plants that spewed ash everywhere. And then they also use that ash for roads and fill, you know, in housing developments, mostly low income. So, and they've done a lot of cleanup there, but as we're doing the creeks, like we asked them to leave the creeks alone until we figured out the design, and we cleaned it up during construction. So we didn't have to like redo things. Both of the creeks that we are dealing with in our project have been the city's #1 and 2 flooding priorities for decades. The 1 mile of McCoy's Creek is now, the construction's finished for restoration. That's where most of the flooding was happening. And ever since it was restored, it no longer floods. So we've already proven that you can fix flooding issues if you give the creek enough room. And then again, as we go, we're finding more pollution than just ash that we're cleaning up. And our approach is that we remove the contaminated soil. That is our first approach. So we're getting rid of it, hauling it off. Next. So this is big for us. Again, community engagement and seeing communities as our partners in planning and design is really critical to us in how we approach the project. And we pride ourselves on not just listening, but acting on what we hear. So I think we've gained a lot of trust in the communities that we work in. Next. So CREST it's a mouthful, which is why we call it CREST. It's CREST, it's Community Restoration Environmental Stewardship Training. And that actually came out from our work on McCoy's Creek. We started working with the two neighborhoods next to the creek, North Riverside and Brooklyn. And what we learned from them is that they really wanted to learn how to become better community leaders and mentors. And so one of the ways we addressed that was to create CREST, which is intergenerational, so for teens and adults. And we did it through environmental stewardship. So classroom learning about creeks and waterways, and then also getting their hands dirty and things. And again, we gave them compensation, whether if they did a creek cleanup, they'd get a gift card, or when they're working on projects for us, we're actually paying them. And then in my naivete, I did not realize that green projects can lead to gentrification, which can lead to displacement, which anyone who knows about groundwork knows that that is the opposite of what we are trying to do. So home preservation, which is repairing homes that already exist and that these folks live in, is one of the simplest and least expensive ways to prevent displacement, right? They're not susceptible to people buying their homes at a low property rate. They're not forced to leave because their conditions are bad. And then in Duval County, there's a lot of heir property issues, which means there's no clear title to property. So those folks can't get loans. They wouldn't even be eligible for home repair. So our partner, LISC Jacksonville, does work to clear property titles, and then also provides funds for back taxes so that to prevent people from losing their homes. So one of the things I discovered recently was that if we wanted to repair 350 homes, it would cost us $10 million based on experience per home so far. Compare that to an apartment complex of 243 units at 55 million. So I think it's an incredible ROI to do home repair. Next. So here's our Emerald Trail in different colors. So what the colors mean are solid lines meant it existed before we got started. And that was the S-Line rail trail to the north with a disconnected part, number 4 in the middle. Yellow is under construction. Oh, wait, no, yellow is constructed. So the La Villa Link, number 1, is finished. And then the FDOT came in and did a shared use path next to the highway that bridges between the Riverside and San Marco neighborhoods, and that's completed. Orange is what's under construction, and then the light dotted lines, dotted green lines are in design. And then the dark dotted green lines are actually in, we're going through the planning, development, and environmental study process. So at this point in time, 100% of this project is underway in some form or fashion since we passed the, since the city council adopted the master plan in 2019. And that is remarkable if you think about it. It really is. And sometimes we have to step back and go, dang. Next. So this is the La Villa Link that opened in May of 2024. It's so the photo on the bottom left is, it was a divided 4-lane bridge that we took the entire left side for trail and moved 2-way car traffic to the right on those 2 lanes. So that's, we're doing major, we're really creating mobility equity in very many ways in terms of not being all about the cars, which typically is what it's all about. And then we connect to, on the bottom right, we connect to a city retention pond, and we've done, we've put in a living shoreline. It's amazing how far this project has come in terms of the pond, and we continue to do improvements. We just planted like, I don't know, 24 trees just last week. And then the top of that is the top of the Park Street Bridge. And when you overlook there at the glass railing, you'll see the rail yard and McCoy's Creek, and we are still waiting for the shade structure to go over that seating structure. Next. Hogan Street is segment number 2. The design should be completed soon. The first block will be under construction in the next 2 to 3 months. Next. Oh, and that's where we're taking a 2-lane one-way road down to 1 lane and adding a cycle track. Next. So McCoy's Creek was our first creek design project. The city wanted to, well, I'll show you that when we get to the bigger map. I'll just say that we changed the project dramatically. We asked to design it. The city said, okay, but we're not guaranteeing you or accepting your design. So we said, challenge on. And we just made it a much more beneficial project in terms of, they just cared about flooding, but our project reduces flooding. It's creating habitat for fish and wildlife. It will improve the water quality because of all the green infrastructure, since we're taking it back to a natural channel, a natural creek. And then we're increasing recreation by both the trail and then water recreation. Next. So what the city wanted to do between where you see Forest Zoological Park and Confluence Park, that's where there was a whole lot of flooding because the land's so flat. And in the 1920s, ironically, under the City Beautiful movement, the city straightened it and hardened it and took away all of its floodplain. And, it's been flooding ever since. So what the city wanted to do was just close the road that went through the floodplain and let it flood. That's what they were going to do. And then towards the mouth of the creek on the right, they were going to widen it in an unnatural way. And so this is probably the project that I am most proud of in terms of how dramatically we've changed it. But on the left-hand side where the creek flows from east to west and then it goes north and south, that's the branches or the creek's headwaters. That was not in the city's scope. And so Groundwork fully took that on, raised all the money to design it and pulled together $10.3 million to construct it. And then the city's going to manage that construction project starting this fall. Next. So this is the creek on the left under construction. And then on the right, I don't know about you guys, but meanders make my heart sing, especially when you think of it, that it was straightened and had bulkhead, and it's just an amazing transformation. Next. So we're currently designing Hogan's Creek. Again, we're taking that one back to a natural channel. And so Groundwork secured $9 million from National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and NOAA to design it to 100%. So we're going to control, it's not that the city's not at the table, because they're our partner. But because we've got full funding, we're designing the whole project, not in pieces like the city ended up doing. So the design will be completed by September of next year. We're about to complete the 60% design. And so on the left is a park where, again, it's just like a messy flooding condition. And on the right, it's what we envision that to become, more of a wetland pond. And then on the bottom right is where Henry Clouthier, you may know of him, in the 1920s, again, straightened and hardened the creek and did this, I don't know, Italianate design. And so the creek is not natural. Even the bottom's not natural, and it's kind of a mess. So, and the infrastructure is totally falling apart. So on the right is what we envision that to become in one of the parks. Next. Oh, and by the way, again, both of these creeks are polluted, not just with ash, but with petroleum products. There's a lot of human fecal matter. We're trying to figure that out. And so there's a lot of contamination cleanup that are part of these creek restoration projects. And then this is the Riverside Link. We just completed the 30% design, and we'll start designing that to 100%. And that is connecting Riverside, which is a more affluent neighborhood, to North Riverside, which is a poorer neighborhood, and to McCoy's Creek. And so we love the fact that not only will Riverside folks get to see neighborhoods they don't typically go to, but it also gives folks from North Riverside an easier way to get to Riverside. Next. Now it's Janet's turn.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us today, Jaleesa. I appreciate you reaching out to us. And I want to just give a quick shout out to other folks, someone else that's on our team that's on the call. Gloria McNair is our manager of community engagement and equity. And so she does a lot of that most of the community work that Kay mentioned, and also developed the CREST curriculum that she talked about, and which we love and are utilizing in other ways to leverage other grant opportunities. Also, Chanel is on the call, and she was really the architect of the Emerald Trail Steward Training Program. So if I miss anything, and I know I will, please chime in. As I mentioned earlier, Kate, I came in when the program was already started, so I know enough to be dangerous, but it's a really cool program. So once the trail is complete, as Kay mentioned, it's going to be 30 miles of native plants, shade trees, bioswales, gardens, ponds, and creeks. And so it's, all the work that goes into building it, we want to make sure we maintain it to a really, really high, beautiful level so that people will utilize the trail. The neighborhoods, the residents, they'll be proud of their segment of the trail, and people will want to use the trail. Next, please. They came up with the idea for a training program where we would provide training and job opportunities for residents in the communities that are along the trail, and then develop a highly skilled landscape maintenance and green infrastructure workforce for the trail. So basically, we were going to train our own, train the residents to take care of the trail that's running through their neighborhoods and provide opportunities in those neighborhoods. Next, please. The goals of the first cohort, it was a 6-month program. And then within 6 months of completing the program, participants would either be hired by Groundwork Jacksonville to work on our trail maintenance projects, or another employer. They might continue their education by going into FNGLA's paid apprenticeship program. That's Florida Nursery Grower, Landscape Architect. It's the state affinity group that we partnered with, or they'd be connected to another educational opportunity. Next, please. And sorry, just that photo that was to the right, that was our stewards in action, and they were actually helping our landscape architect put in a rain garden at one of the home repair projects that Kay referenced earlier in the North Riverside neighborhood. So we don't just do work on the trail, and they get to do some fun stuff like this as well. Sorry, next, please. So again, the training program, we recruited people who lived in zip codes within our service area, which I have listed there. 40% of the residents who live in the neighborhood surrounding the trail are of working age, but the unemployment rate is much higher than compared to the rest of Duval County. So we really felt like there was a need there. Again, another reason to focus on recruiting in the neighborhoods. Next, please. And so this map shows kind of the footprint of the trail, kind of it has the trail in purple, and then we've got all the neighborhoods that surround it that we consider, part of the Emerald Trail. And so it's 24 square miles with a total population of around 80,000. And 34% of those residents are living in poverty. Next, please. So our first cohort, which was completed in July of 23, I have to think about that. Has it been that long? I guess it has. Two of the program graduates are employed by Groundwork Jacksonville as part-time Emerald Trail Stewards. They're part-time because they want to work part-time. We have, a really terrific curriculum and program design, and honestly, some of the most amazing partners ever were recruited by Groundwork and under Chanel's leadership. Next, please. And those partners are, as I already mentioned, FNGLA has an amazing curriculum, and they have a whole team that helps with training. So we had someone who was assigned to our cohort that came and did a lot of the in-person training. All of our sessions were held at the University of North Florida's Botanical Gardens. They had meeting space for the classroom instruction, and then we did field work after the training. The coursework, excuse me, the lectures, I should say, in the morning. And you can see this is the group out at one of the spots that they were working on. It's a huge campus, beautifully maintained, and they got to work in greenhouses, just do all kinds of things to really put that coursework into practice. Career Source of Northeast Florida was another important partner. They did testing for reading and math levels. They did resume writing, interview skills, communication skills. A lot of that, those soft skills were provided by Career Source. They also hosted virtual job fairs for us. And we're just a really terrific partner. The head of the committee was Liberty Landscape. He is a very large business here in Jacksonville, and kind of gave that business side of the landscaping to the group, and also was all in on training, providing more training for people working in the space, because the turnover, as many of you may know, in the landscape industry is significant. He said he would hire, every person that graduated from the program. There's just such a demand. So he was really a great partner, but also gave us, like I said, that business side of the business. And then, of course, our funders, National Park Service, NOAA, and REI for the initial cohort. And then we also had a LUI grant from Groundwork USA, which I'm embarrassed to say that I don't have on this slide. And I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Next, please. Real challenges that came up pretty quickly in the program were transportation. Again, all of the participants lived in along the trail, but the University of North Florida, for those not familiar with Jacksonville, is a good ways away. Jacksonville is pretty large area-wise, and so that became an issue that needed addressing. Participant feedback about the schedule and the hours, where it was challenging because it wasn't a full-time program. Participants did get a stipend for when they were at training, when they were in the program, but it was part-time. And because the hours were 2 afternoons a week and 1 day all day, the feedback we got was that it was difficult to have perhaps a second job, with a schedule that was, a little unusual. So that presented some challenges for some of our participants. And, recruiting, I think that there was a fairly short run up to the first cohort. Again, I'll let Kay jump in if I misspeak, but so I'm not sure that we had enough time to do the recruiting that we would have liked. So getting folks into the program was, I think, a little bit of a challenge. But we started with 12 in the first cohort. Next, please. So then, what's next? I'm sorry to say I haven't found funding for a second cohort, but we are always looking. So if anybody has any ideas, we would love it. We learned a lot of good lessons. The partners are still engaged. I touch base with them occasionally and say, I'm still looking for funding, because they love the program. So I think there's a lot of interest in continuing it, with some modifications based on the feedback from participants and our partners.
Thanks so much, Kay and Janet. I think this Emerald Trail just really shows how brownfields can be transformed and really support economic development, greener communities, healthier communities. And then I love all the connections to water as well. I think that was really clear. And it just shows how the Emerald Trail Stewardship Program is part of a much bigger project and work that Groundwork Jackson and the city and the community are doing. So thank you both for sharing. And so if anyone has questions, we're going to enter into our Q&A portion of the webinar. We have about 15, 20 minutes. And so you can feel free to add any questions that you have for Janet or Kay into the chat. But I'll get us started in the meantime. And so I'd love to, so you shared, the Emerald Trail Stewards Program didn't focus directly on brownfield assessment or remediation, but brownfields were still included in the curriculum. And so why was it important for you all to incorporate brownfield education into the workforce training program? And what value did that add for the participants and the community?
Janet, this is you.
We didn't discuss who was going to answer questions, did we? Sorry about that. Well, you can tell from Kay's presentation, we feel it's very important for not just the groundwork team, but the community to understand the history, both, political and environmental, as they are quite linked, of the neighborhoods that the Emerald Trail is reconnecting, returning brownfields to economically productive use while restoring blighted landscapes and healthy environments it's important and complex work. Since the stewards are from the neighborhoods along the trail. We want them to serve as ambassadors for the projects and its importance for returning the neighborhoods to vibrant, connected, and healthy communities. So we just feel like it's important for people to know where they're working, and so that's why it's included. Okay, please feel free to add any thoughts you have on that.
Well, I mean, we're in a brownfield,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the bottom line. And it is important to understand that. And any work we do, we have to be cognizant of that, right? Any construction and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of what the city is doing on the ash is they're removing 2 feet of soil and adding 2 feet of clean soil. So they did that around people's houses. I don't know if that's like the best solution, but I guess it's better than nothing. So I think we have to be aware of when we might be in brownfield area and how we treat that stuff.
Yeah, thank you both. And so we had an audience question that asked, can you talk more about why home improvements help protect against displacement caused by green infrastructure?
And Gloria, feel free to chime in on this, but so a lot of the communities we're in are pretty poor, and the neighborhoods we consider them historic African American neighborhoods. So they've been around for a long time. So the housing inventory is old. And if you haven't had money to maintain it or keep it up, some folks, roofs are the key to everything. If you don't have a good roof, your house is going to get ruined. So we see that as a priority. But our other priorities are health and safety. So one guy didn't even have a subfloor. He was living in a trailer in his driveway. So being able to put in a bathroom that he can use, if people don't have air conditioning, it gets really hot here. So it's really about, if you have a good place to stay, you are less likely to leave or get kicked out. Like if you have back taxes, you're going to lose your home eventually. If we don't get title cleared on a home on your property, you're not going to be able to get a loan to fix up a home or get home repair. And so it's home repair keeps people in place. Gloria, do you have anything to add to that?
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I would just like to add, and I didn't come camera ready. I'm sorry. But
you're always camera ready.
I would like to add that these people were susceptible for a reason, and we took it as something that we had to address. Folks saw the Emerald Trail as an opportunity, and we're talking developers, investors. And the neighbors were receiving offers on a daily basis. They were doing cash buyouts. And if you find yourself, You cannot repair your roof. Your HVAC system is failing, and you don't see a way out. $40,000 in cash was very tempting to them. Now we have 36 people who feel secure in their homes because we've helped them, and we wish to do more, and we're continuing to look for funding to help more residents within that area and other neighborhoods that we will be going through.
And just a quick follow-up question, I think, related to that. And so someone asked, with these projects, is there a plan to address gentrification or displacement? And I think I would say the home repair is part of that plan, but Kay, Janet, or Flora, but can you add anything else?
I think home repair is the simplest and most cost-effective way to prevent displacement. Does it cure the whole problem? Absolutely not, because in these neighborhoods, a lot of single-family homes are rental property, right? And when a landlord sees that property values are improving, and that's going to happen. Like trails, what we've seen in the research is trails increase property values on average 6%. People start taking an abandoned structure or vacant structure and building on it or restoring commercial structures. That's happening already along the trail. And so it's not that it doesn't cure the whole problem, but it's something we can absolutely do. That's actually the easiest thing to do.
And it was part of the equity plan that the neighborhood came up for itself, how they were going to address anti-displacement strategies, what they were going to do. And we've just helped them try to achieve those goals.
Gloria, that is such a good thing because I forget what we've done.
We've done a lot.
Gloria, so we actually helped the North Riverside neighborhood. We facilitated them creating a 10-year neighborhood vision. And then Gloria worked with them on how do we implement that vision. So, yeah.
And in addition to all that, she also oversees that home repair program that she speaks so passionately about.
Yeah, a lot of great work. Thanks for sharing that. And so I want to go back to the Emerald Trail Stewards Program. I think you mentioned a little bit about recruitment and how you wish you could have done more, but I think 12 participants to start is really great. So can you share what was your approach to recruiting participants for the Stewards Program, and what advice would you give to others trying to reach local residents for similar workforce initiatives?
I'll start. I wasn't there then, but I'll start with what I do know. And that's that we had, the program was well thought out, had beautiful materials. And we sent all of that to all of our partners, these neighborhood associations we work with, all the groups that we work with in the different neighborhoods, our nonprofit partners. We, of course, utilized our website and social media. And those are the main ways that I know of. I think that, again, from what I understand, the advice I would give is that the recruiting, it should be ongoing. So if we can, if we had a permanent position, right, it was a short-term grant, so we don't have someone still working on this, but if you had a permanent coordinator doing this work, it's just ongoing. And your hope, of course, also, and we actually have had this, I had someone apply for the program. I don't have a cohort right now, but from word of mouth by one of our graduates. So you hope that as you have people going through the program, they're also talking it up. And we also, had the support of our project partners as well. But I think it's ongoing and has to be consistent so that you can really get the word out.
Thanks, Janet. And can you speak a little more to the importance of the partnerships with local organizations and stakeholders and the success of the Emerald Trail Stewards Program?
Well, as everyone here knows, you can't be an expert on everything. And so having those subject matter experts was incredible. Rhonda Gracie, who is the head of the Botanical Gardens at UNF, gave so much of her time to really take the curriculum from FNGLA and help, structure it over this training period. I mean, I learned more just, I think, in the 2 sessions that I went to that she led than I, learned my whole life about, working out, and it was on irrigation, which was very interesting to me because we were in a drought at that point. So it just, you need to have people who know what they're talking about doing this training. The gentleman from FNGLA is a master at all of the tools and irrigation parts. I mean, that whole section, that whole test of where they have to use and talk about all the different landscape maintenance tools is intense, and it was a lot of material. I mean, I just don't. Again, we can't know everything. The program core is doing a lot of other things, doing that recruitment work, doing the interviewing, lining up transportation, helping with wraparound services. So it just really helps to have people that do that work every day teaching it. And we were very blessed that they gave so much of their time.
And I would add that we really, I don't know if we do anything without partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, again, a small staff, you really do rely heavily on your partners.
Yeah, definitely think partnerships are important. And so this was another audience question. Do you all do soil testing before installing landscaping?
So here's a lesson learned from doing the first trail segment: what to do better and what to do differently. And conclusion we've come to collectively, including the city's public works director, who's an engineer, that we really think design teams should be led by a landscape architecture firm. We're going to be looking for national firms. There really aren't any good ones locally. And that they then have a sub that's the engineering firm. And so, because we were awarded this $147 million federal grant, we had like a really short window to get 5 trail segments done. So we were going to be doing like almost all of them at the same time, which was crazy. Now, we don't know if we're getting that grant, and I don't know when we're going to know because of the new administration. But in meeting and interviewing landscape architecture firms, that's when we heard about it's important to test the soil, not just for chemicals or pollution, but to know what kind of soil you're working with for plants. And does it need to be supplemented, or does it need to be, so I don't know that we have, but we will be. Now, we are definitely doing soil testing in the creeks for sure. And there's testing of any land that we're going to be acquiring for creek restoration. But I don't know that we did any testing on the trail work only.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that about just thinking about the type of soil. I feel like I forget because I'm so focused on sometimes the brownfields and thinking about like the pollutants and everything. It's like there's other reasons to test the soil. And so I have a question. You all mentioned the wraparound services and how you worked with CareerSource. Why was it important to include these wraparound services like the financial literacy seminars in the program? And what are some impacts you've seen as a result of including this in the program?
And Jan, before you get started, add kind of the lessons learned and what we would do differently next time on both the part-time issue and the wraparound.
Okay. Obviously, to be successful, we have to have good communication skills. And so that was very important, because not just to be successful, and to be successful in the classroom environment, and then working, with the rest of the cohort. But then also once you're employed, for us, the Emerald Trail Stewards are also ambassadors. They often encounter a lot of people on the trail, people with questions, people, maybe that have, some challenges, what have you, all kinds of people. And so it was really important for us to have, good communicators. But we also wanted them to be successful in the coursework. We knew that we weren't going to be able to hire everyone that went through the program, just because, as Kay showed you, we're building trail. I don't need 12 people today. Hopefully I'll need that many, soon, but not today. So that interview skills, the resume writing, was very important to the program. And then the financial literacy, that helps not just, the individual, but, landscape businesses, there's a lot of them here in Jacksonville. I won't say it's ever easy to start a business, but I think there was also that approach of this could be, you could start your own business once you've gone through this coursework, right, and gotten some experience. So it was to give them, more tools to draw upon as they were completing this program and working in the space. Others, we had two participants that were unhomed during part of the training. And as I already mentioned, transportation was a huge issue, just because most of our participants didn't have vehicles. So I think that lessons learned would be, I'm not sure that we were as prepared as we could have been to help with some of those challenges. Our coordinator was an incredible cheerleader and advocate and worked very hard. I mean, really got to know our participants, checked on them frequently. I mean, if you didn't return a text, she was after you. She wanted to know, are you okay? Again, because of some of these issues. But some things are just completely out of your control. We had a participant who lost a family member and needed to travel to another state and ended up staying to help another family member that person was caring for. If I have the story correct, I didn't get a chance to meet her. But so I think that, again, it's relying on partners, making sure you have all of those contacts and that you can do the warm handoffs for those services. I'm just not sure we were as prepared for all the needs that some of our participants may have had.
I think that's an important lesson learned to share with folks who are thinking about doing something like this, because it's not just design the program and do the work. There's so much more. You're working with the community and people, and they have other stuff, other things that come up.
And I think that the next time, Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at bringing them on full time during the training period.
Right. Some of the feedback we got from participants was that the program was also rather long. 6 months is a fairly long training program, and some of the other research we've done, they're shorter. And we all know, especially if you're learning a new skill, many of the participants had not worked in this business. Some had, but really that in the field is so critical, that on-the-job training. And I think that we learned, even with the two that we hired, that, their skills expanded the more they were on the trail. So, a half day or a full day once a week, we felt like maybe wasn't enough. So maybe shortening the program, making it full time to help not only with the time they have doing the OJT, but also their economic situation, so that they're more stable while going through the program. We felt like was very important. I know one reason we had the longer program was because that was a requirement of the pre-apprenticeship guidelines in this state. But we kind of felt like the benefits of going with a shorter program and maybe not calling it a pre-apprenticeship, it wouldn't technically be one, outweighed, having that particular title for the program. And so I think going forward, we would probably call it a workforce training program or something like that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. And so we have about 6 minutes left. So I guess if there's, any kind of advice or last thoughts or even like successes, that you want to share with the group for folks who are thinking about like the intersection of trails, brownfields, workforce development. Is there anything that you want to share with the group before we end?
I just think do your research, and I can say that because I didn't do any of it for this program. The folks before me who developed it did, but I have found, as have come across other funding opportunities, that there's been so much information and so much good work done that I was able to rework it to fit that, because we all know every funder's a little different in what they want and how they want things presented and what they will fund or not fund. And so I found that very helpful. There was a lot of thought given to this, and it's just keeping up with that because things change so much. And, you know, what funders are funding changes, what the state wants done changes, you know, so, you know, do your homework and really, really get connected with those wraparound service providers as well as your subject matter experts.
Cool. All right. I mean, do you want me to show the video, Kay and Janet? Okay. So
Oh, it's so
we have
much
a-
fun. It's a great
yeah.
way to go out on a high.
Yes.
So this is a video of the 1 mile section of McCoy's Creek that's had creek restoration done.
Let me just make sure I'm sharing my sound so everyone can hear it.
And it's going to be going west to east. So it's heading east.
You hear the sound?
The trail will be on the right-hand side next to the residence. The bridge we're coming up to, that little dinky thing, is going to be widened to accommodate the new creek width. They're going to be boardwalks that get you out to what I call the Cabbage Patch Islands. Again, the trail on the right, and there's enough room that it'll be a trailhead with bathrooms and pavilions and actually a park for kids. This is the outfall where there wasn't enough room to do natural. So it was widened and relocated. So the river walk, we can't use it because we had to remove some of it to make room for the creek while it's under.
Yeah, thanks. I love the commentary as you're doing. I think that really helps. So yeah, I appreciate it. It was like perfect. So yeah, I think that was great to hand off so you could all see, you know, the work that the Trail Stewards program, what they were working on, and the Emerald Trail and what everyone was working on. Thank you so much, Kay and Janet. I really appreciate you and Gloria taking the time to present and answer questions and just share all the work you all are doing with us today. So thanks so much. And so, yeah, and thank you for everyone who joined us today. Please take the survey at the end of this webinar so you can let us know how we did. And yeah, sign up for our newsletter through this QR code or the link that we'll put in the chat. And we just wanted to say we'll also be having another webinar on Tuesday, June 10th, time TBD, but it'll focus on municipal partnerships for extreme weather resilience. So I think that'll be a really great webinar. And so make sure you sign up for the newsletter and we'll send more information in this follow-up email with the recording and everything. And so, yeah, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jaleesa.
Bye.
Bye, Jaleesa.